Hello and welcome back to Listen Dog Training, the Walk and Talk. I just want to say right at the beginning of this episode, because I am unaware how hideous I sound. I don't know if I still sound nasally or yucky, but I have just had like a full 9 days, basically in a semi-coma, doing nothing but absorbing sound from Married at First Sight, back-to-back episodes, surviving on Lucozade, because I have had some kind of hellish winter bug. No, I'm not allowed to say winter bug because I think it's technically still autumn, and somebody bashed me on Instagram for saying I had a winter bug because it's not winter, but you know what I'm saying. I don't know if it was COVID because I don't have any COVID tests, but Lord, there was no mercy. I was so very ill. So if I cough during today's episode, please don't worry. I am going to edit out anything that sounds horrific, and hopefully this all sounds fine to you. But if I do sound a bit weird, it's because I'm just on the back of just a week of serious illness. But I couldn't not record anymore. I've already gone like 9 days without recording, and we were soon going to run out of content, and that just won't do. So without further ado, let's get into it. I hope you guys are all okay. I hope the winter plagues have not come for you like they have come for me. I hope you and your dog have had a good week so far. I hope you have all survived a bonfire night okay. If it's happened, if it's looming ahead of you this weekend still, remember, there's lots you can do to help your dog out. You can up the ambient noise in your home. Close the curtains, turn the TV up, whack the radio on, whatever it is. Make sure they are well exercised and not full of excess energy for the evening on that evening. And although you'd be cutting it pretty fine now, if you haven't done anything yet, there are always YouTube soundtracks, or you can ask the little digital device with a woman's name that I won't say out loud in case it triggers yours. You can ask her to play firework soundtracks that you can start at a super low volume whilst you're like playing with your dog, or you're feeding them, you're doing some hand feeding or doing a little bit of training that they enjoy, and then gradually upping the volume whilst you're still doing the fun, the positive stuff, just to get your dog acclimatized to those noises and to get them to have that association that, oh, these noises don't mean anything dangerous is going to happen. Like we just carry on and do our own thing. I have a good time when these noises happen. It's all good. Most important thing to remember, if your dog does panic during fireworks season, I know a lot do. I know some don't, and that's fine. You guys, like, you've either done a great job or you've just got lucky. But I know a lot of dogs do. You can absolutely comfort them any which way you like. Fear is not something that can be rewarded. You do not make your dog more fearful by cuddling them or reassuring them, as I know is a message that can be bandied around at this time of year. Ultimately, fear it's an emotion. It is inherent. It is not driven by consequence. Behaviour is modified by reward and punishment. Fear is an emotion, not a behaviour. Have I said that enough times? There's a post on my Instagram that goes into more detail on this. If you want it, I'll try and share it. But essentially, if you mentally freaked out, right, every time you saw a snake because you're terrified of snakes, and then someone started paying you £5 every time you saw a snake and panicked, well, that's not going to make you more scared of snakes, is it? That's just not going to grow your fear. That's not how fear works. If anything, actually, if we think about classical conditioning, it might over time have the opposite effect. But do you know what? I'm not even here to talk about fireworks today. I've hit a hard tangent there and I've taken you with me. I am actually here to talk about something different. So without further ado, before my voice fails me completely, let's get into it. Okay, today I want to talk about your dog's plastic personality. And I don't mean that in a derogatory way. Truly, I mean this in the best way possible, because personality is plastic. Training, environment, and your own energy as an owner as well sculpt who your dog becomes minute by minute, day by day, week by week. Because If you're at the moment feeling kind of stuck, and I know so many people get into this place, right? Like, I got this dog is a nightmare, and now this is what I'm stuck with. Like, this is the dog I chose. Then this is the podcast episode for you, because I'm here to reassure you with some jolly good news. You are not stuck at all. I'm going to say that louder for the adolescent dog owners at the back. You are not stuck. You are actually co-creating who your dog becomes every day with your training, with the environment that you put them in, with your energy. And the good news is, I'm going to tell you how to make the most of that fact today. So, let's start by unpacking what we even mean when we talk about our dog's personalities. What is a personality to a dog? And where does the myth of a fixed personality come from? So, when we say personality, we are talking about relatively stable behavioral tendencies, things like boldness versus shyness, reactivity, curiosity, impulsivity, confidence, all of that juicy stuff. And when researchers study dog personality, they tend to group behaviors into traits like playfulness, sociability, fearfulness, or trainability. And yes, some of these traits stay pretty consistent as a dog matures, but only to a point. Because in reality, a dog's brain is constantly adapting. Their personality is actually fluid. Experiences, environment, and training keep shaping who they are every single day. And so, what that means is yes, a dog might show a predisposition toward being more avoidant or more bold, for example. Genetics, early developmental influences, breed dispositions, they all play really important roles. They do. But the key thing to remember when we're looking at all of this is personality isn't destiny. That old belief that, oh, my dog is just that way, that's just who he is, there's nothing I can do about it. That, in my opinion, is a really dangerous trap because, to be blunt, it totally kills hope dead. It takes away our agency as owners. And frankly, it often just leads people to stop trying altogether, and then they just resign themselves to this frustration, like a future decade of frustration, because this is just the dog that I got. But you know what the reality is? Research shows that your dog's brain isn't static, not at all. It's actually constantly rewiring itself based on experience. Every bit of learning, every pattern that's repeated, every time you reinforce a behavior, it all helps to shape and create their neural pathways. So, in other words, your dog's brain literally changes in response to what happens day to day. And that's what we mean when we use the word neuroplasticity, which I'm sure you've heard before, but if you haven't, it's just the brain's ability to adapt, to grow, and to remodel itself. So here's the mindset I actually want you to hold on to. Yes, your dog has certain predispositions. There will be a baseline temperament, right? Genetic influences, little quirks baked in from birth. But layered on top of that is so much potential. And your role as the human, as the trainer, is to keep tilting the scales toward that potential. Every bit of training, every positive experience, every small success, it's like gently sculpting who your dog becomes. And it's not to be sniffed at, okay? So, right, let's get a little bit nerdy now, because I think understanding the science behind all this, it gives you that extra bit of leverage, the perspective that you need to just push through those plateaus when things do feel a bit stuck. And look, we've all been there. So, first of all, let's look at temperament versus personality, okay? And a useful distinction here is that temperament is more like the raw material. Early life traits, think reactivity, baseline arousal, threshold sensitivity, whilst personality is how those raw materials are shaped over time through the dog's life experiences, their environment, their learning. Temperament gives you that starting point, but you don't just stay tethered to it, unaltered by everything else that's happening around you. Neuroplasticity means the brain is continuously adapting. Every time your dog practices a new pattern or is reinforced for a behavior, it fires a neural circuit in the brain, and you are strengthening that pathway. And over time, the less used pathways in the brain weaken, they fade into the background, and eventually they get pruned out, right? It's like if you imagine a meadow and there's a footpath through the center of a meadow that is repeatedly trodden, and eventually enough people walking that same route, eventually it just becomes the path that everybody walks because it's so laid out. There's long grass everywhere else, and this is just fully trodden down. Everyone's going to walk that same path. Whereas the less used paths that may or may not have been created by one or two little outliers, eventually they just become overgrown and abandoned. There's one route through. So that means that everything you do, your consistency, the way you gradually build challenge, how you mix things up, how you help your dog take something that they've learned into some new situations, all of that stuff really matters because every bit of that is shaping their brain. And the behaviors that you set them up to choose and act out repeatedly, they form that pathway that eventually all the other behaviors that we didn't like, because we've set them up to rehearse the correct ones so many times, or we've rewarded the correct ones so many times, those are the neural pathways that suggest that actually maybe in this situation I should do this, I should bark, I should jump, whatever it is. They just get pruned out. Those choices just become non-existent over time because of the work that you have put in. And so the more you gently stretch them into new zones without pushing them over the edge, the more flexibility you build in their behavior and in how their brain responds to the world. Now, some traits are more malleable than others. For example, if we take fear or avoidance of novelty as an example, it might take longer to shift because these traits are tied to survival circuits. High arousal or impulsivity might be something that resists change too. Some dogs come wired a little bit hotter, a bit more impulsive. Maybe they're just more easily revved up, and that requires thoughtful, structured training and small, consistent steps to reshape those patterns. You need a systematic plan, incremental exposure, but eventually, even deep rooted tendencies absolutely can move. And that movement might feel really slow. And this is why so many people get frustrated or they just give up entirely. But actually, you have to remember when doing anything at all with your dog, slow is totally okay. Evolution is a marathon, it is not a sprint. Have you ever seen that quote that I'm sure must have floated all over the internet, must have been on Instagram, that says something like, the quickest way to train a dog is slowly, or something like that. And that is absolutely true. Slow progress will honestly serve you better than any kind of shortcut or quick win, because if we are doing something slowly and consistently, we know that we are actually laying down neurological change in the dog's brain. We're not just hacking our way through something. We are creating a permanent new response. So don't rush things. You don't need to. Also, there's another interesting facet we need to remember with all this, and that's you. Because your energy, and I've talked about this in previous episodes, your energy, your mood, your stress, your approach also feeds back into how much your dog's nervous system is open or shut down. Research shows that all of these aspects of your presence as an owner. And I think I've done a whole episode specifically on this before, talking about a couple of these studies in more detail. But it really can affect how your dog responds, how close they feel to you, and even how they behave in tests. So, in other words, it's not just your dog's brain that you are shaping, you're part of the process too. The way you show up changes what they learn and how they grow. And honestly, I cannot tell you how many times students or clients will say, "Oh, my dog is just anxious. He's just a super anxious guy. I know it won't change. He's always been like this. He'll always be like this." Or he's always been crazily reactive. I don't think there's any kind of training that will help. He's always been this way. And I get it because you guys see the behavior day in, day out. You get worn down. You feel like you've tried everything. But here's where mindset really matters. Because if you believe that your dog is locked in, your brain and your training choices will mirror that belief. You will avoid pushing your comfort zone and you'll back off at the first sign of resistance because your brain will actually just present that to you as evidence that your limiting belief was correct, right? You were right all along. There is nothing you can really do. And then you'll end up just settling for half measures. You will prove yourself right because your brain loves to do that. It wants nothing more than to prove your worries right. But I don't want you to do that. So here's what I do want you to do. Make a deal with yourself today for the next 30 days. You're going to behave as if your dog can change, as if you know it for a fact. You're going to push forward in small ways that you didn't maybe think that you could. You're going to pay attention and you're going to watch like a hawk for the tiniest glimpses of progress. And you are going to track all of those tiny shifts. You're going to celebrate them, every single one, even if it feels like the next day you go backwards again. Because actually, each small change is evidence that you can succeed. And each little gain undermines that locked in, stuck, we'll never be able to do this narrative. But whilst you're doing this, please don't hang around waiting for the big showstoppers because behavior change doesn't work like that. Truthfully, the first changes are going to be really quiet. It'll just be like a slightly softer eye or a slight pause before reacting. It's not going to be the big, "Oh my God, what a miracle is this? My reactive dog just walked calmly past 3 cats and 2 dogs, and the entire walk was 100% successful in one day." It's not going to be that moment. But those quiet little shifts, the tiny little changes, are ultimately what build the bigger shifts over time. These are your foundation, and they are absolutely part of the success story. So don't discount them, celebrate them. Okay, so now let's get into the how. How do you actually shape personality moment by moment without it feeling like a million-step instruction manual? Because who wants that on a Friday? First of all, think of it like stretching a muscle, right? You don't throw your dog into a full-on marathon on day one. You start small. You might push a little tiny bit outside their comfort zone and then come straight back into calm again. So set them up with easy wins so they can bank some small successes themselves. Start with gentle exposure and really safe challenge. New surfaces, new sounds, new people, all of that stuff. Layer it all in super duper gradually. Take tiny steps every single session. Let your dog explore, succeed, and feel like, "Oh, I actually did just do a thing. Look at that. I did a little thing. That was good. Maybe I have got this." And that there is literally the brain wiring new circuits for bravery, for calmness, for adaptability, for all of that good stuff. And then you can bring in a little bit of variation and add a bit more context. So don't just practice behaviors in the same room or go to the same park every day. Mix it up a little bit. Use some different environments, new distractions. even just the same trick that your dog knows in a slightly new way. Maybe you always cue your dog to sit whilst you are standing up. So just try sitting down. Try sitting down on a chair in front of your dog and cueing it instead. Your dog's brain needs this kind of variety, because if they only ever behave one way in one place or one situation, it's not really learned. It's 100% situational. And remember, don't scrimp on the rewards while you're doing this stuff. Reinforce everything you want more of. And you really can start with the smallest of wins. Like I said, did your dog pause for a second longer before lunging? Did they make eye contact instead of spinning off? If so, reward that stuff like it's gold. That little moment matters more than the perfect execution of the whole interaction. Because if you think about it, with something like reactivity, one reactive episode is really a series of multiple moments and decisions. So let's break that down and look for the early wins that will lay the foundation for those new neural pathways. And perfection can absolutely come later. Using a clicker or a marker word to mark those moments of individual success can make it really easy to ensure that your dog is properly clocking which moments are being rewarded, right? And which choices are being reinforced. I have a little tutorial on getting started with a clicker if you've never done it before. If you don't know, you keep hearing me say the word mark and you have no idea what I'm talking about. That's over on my Instagram account, which is @listendogtraining. I'm so sure that you're already following that, right? But if you're not, don't worry. I will not hold this against you. Just come over. Come join us, come take a look. There's lots of cool exercises and video tutorials and all sorts on there for a variety of things. So by all means, come and join the party. But like I've already said, tracking micro progress, that is a must. Don't waste your time with, did this work perfectly or not? But truly savor the small shifts, a slower reaction, a tiny pause, softer body, calmer tail, all of that stuff. Stop and smell those roses. Notice it, celebrate it, and use it as fuel for the next session, because those small shifts, they are what compound into bigger change faster than you realize. Now, of course, for balance, it's not always going to be smooth sailing. There are plateaus. There are going to be regressions. And there's also the human side of it. We're not perfect, and nor should we expect ourselves to be, by the way. Sometimes we get tired or we feel impatient, we've had a bad day, we get frustrated, whatever. Plateaus like this are completely normal. That is your dog consolidating new wiring, or that's you needing to cut yourself some slack because you've had a crazy week at work or family drama, whatever. You don't have to constantly push hard. Just keep layering the small wins, because they do add up. I would just say that with most training or behavior adjustment work, human inconsistency is probably the biggest hurdle. So be careful not to allow yourself to fall off the bandwagon completely. Missed sessions, skipped exposures, low energy days, that's where the magic can get lost if we're not careful. So do your best to commit to showing up, even if it's just a tiny moment each day if you've had a rough day. It doesn't have to be an hour's training every day. That is a lot to ask of anyone. But can you just do 5 minutes or 3 minutes of something whilst the kettle boils? That kind of consistency is what makes personality actually shift. But obviously, like I've already said, if you're frazzled, you're burned out, your dog feels that. So do take care of yourself too. Your calm, confident presence is literally teaching your dog how to be calm and confident. So don't let yourself burn out. Try to make consistency as easy as possible for yourself by stacking habits together. So if you have a cup of coffee every morning, say, pop your training treats by the kettle, and then that's at least one mini training session or confidence game or whatever that your dog is definitely going to get each day. The easiest way to fall off a training schedule is to make it unrealistic from the get-go. It's like on January 1st when everyone's like, I'm giving up alcohol and chocolate and sugar, I've signed up to the gym and I'm only drinking smoothies and all of this nonsense. And then a week in, they're just at the McDonald's drive-thru, because that transition was always going to be bloody mental. But if they had just said from the beginning, I'm actually going to just put a kettlebell outside the bathroom door every morning, and then before my shower, which is something that I do every day, I'm just going to do 20 reps of something. I'm just going to do 20, bicep curls, whatever it is. That habit would be so much more likely to stick long term. And then 1 month on, when they'd built that momentum and actually proved to themselves that they were totally capable, they might implement another new change and swap out an evening snack, like the evening packet of crisps in front of the TV, for a really yummy smoothie, and so on. So it's tiny, realistic changes, one at a time, that aren't overwhelming or unrealistic. That's how we achieve long-term change. And it's the same with training your dog and making it stick. So, that said, what are some quick wins that you could start implementing tomorrow? Let's run through a practical and realistic approach, okay, that hopefully feels like something that you could just pick up and run with, okay? So, first of all, number one, pick one behavior that your dog struggles with. Just one. Honestly, forget everything else. And work on that one thing in tiny, manageable steps, even just 2 mini exposures a day, and reinforce the smallest progress. It could be my dog barks at the doorbell, something as simple as that. Now you have a goal to work with, right? Number 2, you're going to track those small metrics that I talked about before, the pause lengths, the eye contact that you can get, your dog's responsiveness, reaction speed, body language, all of these tiny, tiny little things. You're going to celebrate all of those tiny shifts that you achieve over time. Every single one is a progression, so celebrate them. Number 3, you're going to practice your own regulation before training. Just 30 seconds of breathing, grounding, quiet intention, whatever it is. You're going to just make sure that you are bringing that calm energy into the session. Do these 3 simple things consistently, and you will start to notice the subtle shifts that lead to big personality growth over time. But ultimately, right, here's the bottom line. Your dog and who they are isn't fixed. The dog you have today is not the only version of them. Every day, every choice, every reinforced behavior is sculpting who they become. And if you believe your dog is stuck, you will treat them like they're stuck. And that becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. But if you believe personality is flexible, malleable, shaped by consistent, thoughtful interaction, which it is, then everything changes. You are co-creating a dog who is braver, calmer, more adaptable. Insert desired personality trait here, whatever it is that you want. And the bond between you grows stronger every single day. So show up, celebrate the tiny wins, trust the process, because the work you put in is literally changing a brain. And that's about as magical as it gets, isn't it, really? And you can actually do it. Like you can do this. That's what I need you to know. I need you to believe this at your core. Okay, I feel like I have so many like coughs and noises to edit out of this episode, by the way. So I think I have waffled on enough. And we'll call it a day for today's walk and talk. I really hope you enjoyed our little one-way chat today. I hope it didn't sound too terrible to you. I hope you found it interesting and useful. And if you feel so inclined, please go and share this with a friend who thinks that their dog is just that way and cannot be changed and an entirely hopeless cause, because now we can bust that myth together, can't we? Anyway, I will now leave you to enjoy the rest of your dog walk. If you feel like you would like more tailored support with the kinds of games or exercises or schedules that would help your dog with your unique set of goals, you can check out a wealth of resources on my website, which is listendogtraining.com. If you want to follow me on Instagram or TikTok, obviously I'm devastated you haven't already, but it's never too late. I'm at listendogtraining on both of those. Otherwise, I will see you same time next week, hopefully sounding a lot better than this, for another episode of The Walk and Talk.